Testing. Okay, you can hear it. Yeah. Any way you can mute the audio for just a minute? Is that possible? Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Live. It is Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. Thank you for everybody on Facebook and YouTube bearing with us as it took us an hour to figure out how to broadcast live again, because YouTube is constantly changing the technology. It has literally changed within the last 24 to 48 hours. So I've been complaining a lot about YouTube because we posted our first live cast on Saturday. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and all of your tremendous support. And after airing that single first Pop Your Cherry video, YouTube, Google actively demonetizes that live cast because they're disincentivizing the truth. And for those of you that don't believe me, that think I'm exaggerating or being a drama queen or something like that, I've got proof of it because I put out a video yesterday showing you with my iPhone and my camera the actual demonetized video. Because certain topics, certain subjects, certain keywords aren't allowed on YouTube. For example, if we talk about war in the Middle East, or Syria, or Obama, or gun control, or the European superstate, which I'll be getting to in today's broadcast. That type of content is actively discouraged by the tech behemoths that make up Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. That's pretty much it. There's like 5 companies that dominate the entire tech game. It's why we need your support. It's why I want to thank you for your support. And I am entirely humbled by the outpouring of that support, even within the past few days. It's amazing. And of course, this channel wouldn't be here if it weren't for the thousands of you tuning in on a regular basis, reaching millions of households around the world that have continued to share our broadcasts with your friends and family, even as YouTube and Google is actively demonetizing our content, discouraging the truth from getting out to more and more households. You see, if I was talking about Kim Kardashian's ass, it would be fine. It would be okay. I could talk about Kim K's tits and ass all day long. We could just do pop culture all day long. It would be fine. So unless you want AMTV to become the next TMZ, Hollywood Entertainment Tonight, then we need you to directly support us. And it's why we've built our own platform. We're not just streaming on YouTube. We're not just streaming on Facebook, but we've also built and are continuing to build our amazing platform, AMTV On Demand. I want to thank you individually right now. The dozens, as I pulled up this report earlier this morning, who have subscribed within the last 24 to 48 hours. I'm just going to name a few of you, and I'm not going to give out your full credentials or anything like that because obviously we're concerned about privacy, or at least I am in today's world where, the government, potentially the FBI, the CIA is watching me as I'm making love to my wife or taking a shit on the shitter. But I do want to thank you. Honestly, it's a little overwhelming at times. Sometimes I don't know why I'm in the position that I'm in, why we have such a beautiful, elevating opportunity to really change minds. And it's not that it's easy. It's not that we're not constantly facing the fire, but it's through your support that allows this show to continue, to grow, and raise awareness around the world as we go to war with the mainstream media, which is exactly what AMTV is about. Jaworski, Marson, thank you. Impe P. J. Callan, thank you. Stop 2C, thank you. Ian English 7, thank you. Chad Kopser, thank you. A. Strasberg 77, thank you. Beeble 07, thank you. Janelle Landress, Seraphic Music, Casey Rizzo, Suravan Madhira, WMAR Hang, Lewis, James, Wiley V. Coyote, Burl Girl 79, Tom, GMAFRIE, Evan, Terry. I'll stop there just to name a few. Thank you so much for subscribing to our broadcast live. and supporting what we do, subscribing to AMTV On Demand. For those of you just tuning in, folks, if you want to know how you can support our broadcast, how you can help us grow our show so that we can support our amazing crew here, the equipment, the lighting, our overhead, the studio, so that we can travel to events, so we can continue this war with the mainstream media, go to our website right now, amtvmedia.com. Click the On Demand button. You can start your free trial today. 14 days free. No obligation. $4.95 a month, $49.95 a year builds this operation as we go to war, but we continue the war with the mainstream media. You see, there's a lot of copycats out there right now. You see them begging for money so that they can allegedly start the media platform that's going to do this great service to the world. Yet they're not doing shit now. They're doing nothing. You see, AMTV has had the ball rolling for over 7 years now. It is completely self-funded, self-financed, and supported by you. There's some truth to that. Amazing truth to the fact that I'm not owned by some major multi-billion-dollar entity like CNN, Fox, MSNBC, one of the big crew. I can say anything I want on camera. I can be real, a real human being. They can't fire me. I can say whatever I want because you, our audience, is supporting what we do. Thank you again for tuning in. This is episode 2 in our live cast. We are broadcasting around the world to millions of households around the world on YouTube and also Facebook. Now, we do listen to you, Facebook. You bitched and complained to me last time. You said, Christopher, you need to look at the camera. So we actually set you up right underneath our main shot here on YouTube. That way all of you can tune in and all of you can get this broadcast. Thank you again for your support. I am truly humbled. The European superstate to be unveiled. EU nations to be morphed into one post-Brexit. But wait a minute here, folks. I thought that this was a huge circle jerk congratulatory victory. Right? I talked about this on Saturday. That all we're getting from even the alternative pundits is one big congratulatory fest. Again, I don't want to discount from the fact that the people have stood up to these elites. That should be congratulated. That's absolutely amazing that the people are fighting back, that there's this populism, that there's this populist anger. But as I said, contrary to every single pundit out there who wanted to give me shit about it, and even our own audience, that there's a master plan behind this. Only for the days, just a couple of days now, for this to come out and shed light, we have hardcore proof that the EU, the UK voting, the Brexit thing, they're going to get out of there. David Cameron is going to resign, even though David Cameron resigning was already pre-planned. I mean, he knew he was going to resign even before that happened. That was a tactic. Now we have hardcore evidence that the EU is pushing for something even bigger. You thought that the Eurozone, this 28-member bloc nation state, was a big deal. Well, now they want something even more damning, even more hardcore. So you give up more control, more liberty, and more freedom. The United States of Europe, the European Union superstate. Great article came out from Express. I printed out here with the image, face of the whore that makes up Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel. These people that have done a horrible job constructing the Eurozone in the first place, which is totally evaporated, by the way, is totally disintegrated. More and more evidence talking about the Brexit Article 50, how this might never actually be put into effect, or it could take, measly 10 years or something like that while they're waiting on it. Another article here from the Daily Mail: as Britain avoided a European superstate, France and Germany draw up plans to morph EU countries into one with control over members' armies. Think about that for a minute. I'm going to go over the details here. The foreign ministers of France and Germany are due to reveal blueprint to effectively do away with individual member states in what is being described as an ultimatum. What kind of ultimatum is that? Under the radical proposals, EU countries will lose the right to have their own army criminal law, taxation, system, or central bank, with those powers being transferred to Brussels. We're talking an all-inclusive master New World Order game plan to dominate the world, transform Europe to something even bigger, bolder, and badder than what we had before. This is why I was arguing, again, even people I respect within the quote-unquote alternative media, people like Alex Jones, Mark Dice, Paul Joseph Watson, all they've been doing is congratulating themselves, congratulating the success of this populist movement. And they should know better. Not for a minute even thinking about the profound repercussions, or that even the stories we've all been reporting on, the Bilderberger meeting, for example, that all of this is a part of a master game plan. Absolutely amazing, folks. And it's absolutely the truth. There's pictures here of Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron shaking hands with the European Commission President as they arrive at the EU summit in Brussels. This was first leaked. This was a leak report before hitting the alternative media and now the mainstream. The public broadcaster reports that the bombshell proposal will be presented to a meeting of the Visegrad group of countries made up of Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, a German foreign minister, Frank Steinmeier. Later today, excerpts of the 9-page report were published today as the leaders of Germany, France, and Italy met in Berlin for Brexit crisis talks. So again, folks, this is part of the agenda. You heard it here first. See, I know I'm onto something when there's pushback, even from our own audience. When they're like, Christopher, come on, can't we just congratulate ourselves for now? I mean, why does everything always have to be so pessimistic? I mean, this sounds good, right? The EU's fallen apart now, something you've talked about for over 7 years. The UK has voted against it, and somehow that vote wasn't rigged, and they didn't know about it, even though people like George Soros made tens of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, shorting derivative contracts, even coming out days prior to all this, saying it was going to happen. We could potentially have a Black Friday. Like they didn't know or something like that. To feel that pushback and then only get hardcore evidence and proof that what is happening is the building of a European super state, the United States of Europe. I also personally think that this comes in some form integrated with the United Nations. That this is a part of the agenda, this is the master game plan, and this is just another chess move of these criminals. It's honest to God, why what we do is so important. Why supporting AMTV is so important. Entity in the world, on the planet, controls all this information. Google, which owns YouTube. Facebook, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, that likes to build walls, even though he gives Donald Trump shit about it, but builds a massive wall in Kauai on the Hawaiian Islands, a $300 million piece of property that he just bought that bulldozes homes in San Francisco, buys out his neighbors at an exorbitant cost, and then puts in his own security force, which has costed him roughly $15+ million, according to his own financial statements over the last couple of years. The Zuckerberg. The Zuck. Amazon, Snapchat, Apple. Do we really have a choice in today's world? Do you really have a choice not to use a cell phone, not to have an iPad, not to have a laptop? Could you meaningfully work and be a part of a normalized society without interacting and morphing into the Borg that makes up this transhumanist world and environment that exists today? The answer to that question is no, of course not, folks. Of course not. You need them. You're dependent on them. They've created this system for a reason. There's a reason people like George Orwell warned about this in his famous classic 1984. Let's get back to the European superstate. Again, bigger, badder, bolder. Part of the agenda, all pre-planned. It's what they just met about. You heard it here first. People like me talking about this ad nauseum, even against a lot of pushback. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand people want to celebrate. They want to congratulate. And I do congratulate that wholeheartedly. There is an organic quality to these revolts. It is transforming democracies, republics here in the United States of America. There's a reason why all of this populist anger has been harnessed. It's created this political vacuum for people like Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and the whore that, well, I guess people really aren't backing Hillary Clinton, but the establishment is. It makes up Hillary Clinton's campaign. In fact, I saw a very interesting video today with a former Secret Service member who actually worked for the Clintons. Slick Willie Bill, Monica Lewinsky. I did not have sexual relationship with that woman as he's banging her. As he himself has even claimed, according to some reports, that he slept with over like 2,000 women or something like that. I mean, it's really like the show House of Cards. Frank and Claire Underwood, their marriage a total fabrication. Do you realize that is absolute propaganda? You do realize that. I enjoy the show. I like to watch because it does mimic reality. You realize it's a form of propaganda, though, right? Frank Underwood, Kevin Spacey, Underwood, think about that, Underwood, essentially playing Bill Clinton, Claire Underwood playing Hillary, a fabrication of their marriage, very evil people committing heinous acts, crimes, murders on a regular basis. Now, see, Americans watch that for entertainment. Right? People are entertained. Kevin Spacey's a great actor. He's been in a lot of movies like American Beauty, which I think won an Oscar, and many others. People are entertained by that. But here's where the propaganda lies. People watch something like that, and then they kind of are desensitized to the evil nature of Washingtonian politics. They're like, I guess that's just the way things are. Yeah, people like the Clintons just allegedly murder people, just like the Frank Underwoods do. Yeah, their marriage is a total illusion. That's just normal because, I see it in House of Cards and, that's just a normal environment. It desensitizes people to the reality. Again, it's fiction mimicking reality, but it's a form of propaganda. I also personally think, I was arguing with a family member of mine, I actually think it also posits a very negative light in Washington, but it does more desensitizing than it does just shedding a spotlight on the negativity surrounding this shit show that makes up these politicians that are bought and paid for by these large corporations, these technocrats that are ushering in a super state, by the way, working for those really in control and really in power. Propaganda all around us. It's why it's gotten worse. I've talked about this recently, the commercialization of the media. TV is dead. Everything's changing. Distribution is a commodity. It's why we're broadcasting across multiple distribution channels, also building our own AMTV on demand. That's how we actually really combat the system. That's how we get away from Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Apple, all of these companies, by building our own infrastructure supported entirely by you, funded by you. That's the only way that we can do it. Because it's getting tougher and tougher. The censorship is at an all-time high. Again, we can't even monetize our content anymore on YouTube. Some videos they allow, but we've worked around keywords and that kind of thing. But that actually limits viewership because if we have to play around keywords, and I can't tell the audience of the world we're reporting on the truth about Syria, for example, how Barack Obama has airstriked more people and had more bombings than George W. Bush, for example, in the Middle East, or how intelligence assets have been helping to foment this radical unrest and jihadi terrorism. If I can't get that truth out through the right title or the right keyword, they're basically just censoring the content. It goes down in the search engine algorithm that makes up, again, this transhumanist environment today. And it's why we need your support. The other article I pointed out, has Britain avoided a European superstate? France and Germany draw up plans to morph EU countries into one. Control over members' standing armies. That means a dissolution and eradication of individual country armies. They're just going to get away with that. How scary is that? They're going to create a European Union superstate army to represent the still existing bloc, of now 27 member countries. I actually don't know, honest to God, I don't know if Britain actually can get out. I think this is almost like a strategic ploy that, okay, they're listening to the people, they've got this vote, They're going to potentially, get out of the Eurozone only for something to happen. And I talked about this in our last live cast. I mean, God forbid, let's just intellectualize for a moment, a bomb goes off or there's another seismic event or act of terrorism. God forbid. I pray there's not. Will the UK still have the balls to leave if they need support of a European superstate army? Maybe at that point, everything will congeal. Maybe that's a part of the plan. Maybe that's a part of the agenda. I think what's happened and revealed itself in recent days, in weeks, is a part of the strategy. The New World Order elite haven't given up, okay? They haven't lost. That is something very important that people need to understand. And, proof is in the pudding, folks. Proof is in the pudding. CNBC, one of the mainstream media giants, propaganda machines, came out today talking about Article 50 and how this process can be potentially initiated so that the UK can actually leave the quote-unquote union. When you're actually done with the article, I don't even have to read it to you. Maybe we'll drop it in the link section at some point. But when you're done with it, you realize, number one, none of this might ever happen. And if it does, it might take something like 10 years for it to complete. Well, by that time, there will be already a European Union superstate initiated. And again, this has been my greatest fear, folks. This is what we've been warning about, for example, and it's hot here in Arizona. You're probably noticing me sweating a little bit. It's over 100 degrees here, 120 some days. It's hot, especially in front of all these lights. This has been my greatest fear. It's one of the reasons why we've broadcasted over 2,000 plus videos, putting it out to the world and the public that this is a reality, this is coming, and it's very dangerous. And the people should be very cautious of don't put your guard down. And that's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of the meat of it, the bones of it, is that don't put your guard down just because it looks like there's been a short-term victory. Yes, congratulate yourself. You've done incredible work. This is pushback, the tip of the spear against the New World Order paradigm. But don't stop now, for God's sakes. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of the war. The war against technocrats that aren't elected. It's the very definition of a technocrat. They're not elected. They're just somehow technical experts politically or something that just have all the power. This is war against the media, something we're fighting with your support on a daily basis. This is a war against the banking cartel, the too big to fail banksters that continue to rape, destroy capitalism here in the United States of abroad, and get away with it. It is absolutely and completely the beginning of this warfare. So what I'm asking and suggesting is, take a moment, take a deep breath. That's fine. But don't stop. Realize that this is actually when we push back harder. When you need to educate your friends and family to what's really going on. When, former Secret Service members come out and the radical liberal leftist media wants to tell us, it's just for profit motive. It's just because this guy wants to make money that he put this book out. Well, I don't know about you. I listened to the guy today. He sounded like a very intelligent, prudent, sound mind. It didn't sound like bullshit. It didn't sound like BS. It didn't sound like, there was profit motive or anything like that. In fact, it'd be great, and maybe he'll consider doing this. I'm actually encouraging it. He should donate all the funds and proceeds from the book, and then that would take that off the table completely. I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but it'd be great if he did. He said as an American, he wanted to let the people know what a bitch, really. I mean, he didn't say bitch, but what a bitch Hillary Rodham Clinton really is. How she's really Jekyll and Hyde. How she's dangerous. How she gave Bill Clinton, at least on one occasion, this is the allegation, a black eye. That the Secret Service members had to tell each other when Bill was philandering, or maybe even potentially, has been some of the allegations, raping somebody in the Oval Office, that they had to let the other Secret Service guy know, like, hey, by the way, man, heads up, Bill's, screwing some chick in the back, for the umpteenth time this week. They used to canvass the women. I've actually seen Bill Clinton running because I went to school in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University on campus where I got exposed to Washingtonian criminal politics. Amazing city. Love the city. But they used to peruse. Bill did. He'd have his Secret Service people cruise, kind of the hot chicks. Again, I don't care that Bill Clinton likes to bang chicks. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to present yourself as a man with integrity and family values, and Hillary Clinton's going to present herself in that light, only beneath the surface to be literally the equivalent of the fictionalized characters Frank and Claire Underwood of House of Cards, that should be put out to the public. People should understand that it's total bullshit, it's a total lie, and these people are scumbags. So it is a public service when these people come out and shed light on the truth. It's exactly why the mainstream media wants to discredit them. It's why the radical left is going to suggest that it's just profit motive and he just wants to make money, blah, blah. I actually think it's far more dangerous for this guy to come out. Even if he makes some money, who cares? What he's doing is actually really dangerous. I mean, number one, how can this guy ever get a job again? How could he ever do anything meaningfully, especially in his field, after really risking it all to shed light, as is his American duty, on the truth about this Clinton-Nista clan? You know, Hillary Clinton, a part of the failed experiment that makes up the 28-member country Eurozone bloc, promoting that, just like Barack Obama, threatening David Cameron in the UK just about a couple of days ago. You know, whether or not Obama is just a total patsy and, you know, how much he knows behind the scenes, who knows? But I'll tell you this, he's taking orders, just like the bitch that Hillary Clinton is taking orders. Why do you think she's made tens of millions of dollars speaking at banking events, even here in Scottsdale, Arizona, in Phoenix, hosting events for Goldman Sachs and then being paid literally millions? Not mentioning anything while she's basically on her knees for those that fund her campaign, by the way. You notice none of this money is going to Donald Trump, for example. Not saying anything about the bankster bailouts and the $1 trillion that they basically stole from us in 2008 and 2009, an engineered financial crisis, not just Goldman Sachs, even though Goldman Sachs is more powerful than the Federal Reserve System, in my opinion. Not mentioning any of that, just basically on her knees praising the gods that make up this banking cartel so they fund her campaign. That's something, there's truth to that. And there's a reason why Donald Trump, for example, has a lot of legitimacy when, you know, he's even been lagging on the funding side. He's had to fund himself a little bit. He's lagging because he's not on his knees. There's something to say for that. And the people recognize that. People are far more educated, in my opinion, now because of the breakthrough of the internet. And although it's getting harder to get that message out in the truth, let me give you a specific example. For example, on Reddit, if AMTV posts its videos in the conspiracy section, the literal conspiracy section, none of what we talk about is conspiracy, by the way, it's factual, but we'll just put it there because we think, okay, well, maybe we can put it there. Content's just removed regularly. Try it yourself. Go to Reddit right now, post this video, this live cast, and watch them remove it. We can't even put our content in the freaking conspiracy section, for God's sakes, let alone the news section or the politics section. Now, again, if this was a leftist channel, even if it was more quote-unquote balanced, which I actually think we are balanced here, you know, and it was the Young Turks Network or something, that'd be fine. You know, they just post that all day long. You know, one thing I like about the Young Turks is they do hate Barack Obama. So that I support. But they are very much on the radical left side of domestic and international politics. Again, the censorship we deal with daily. And it's a real problem. It's a real issue. I'm going to go to some questions in a moment. So we're going to take a quick break. Put your comment, question. If you're tuning in on Facebook Live, put it in Facebook. If you're tuning in on YouTube, put your comment, question on YouTube. Give us about 5 minutes. We'll be back. I'm going to go to those questions live and answer comments, questions, general concerns, anything you want to ask me about the Brexit, Article 50, this EU superstate. And again, All of this we are building out for you. Notice we've started to, we had some trouble getting the broadcast up and running today. We were about an hour delayed. Thank you so much for bearing with us. And again, thank you for your support and subscribing on demand. We're starting to kind of learn how to put, content, add elements, articles, images, that kind of thing. But we're also going to be having interviews, not only in studio live, real human beings here live, but also Skyping guests in. So bear with us over the next few weeks, and God willing, with your tremendous support, we're going to continue to build this program, this show out with your support. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. I'm going to take your questions. I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Live. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, we are back. Short commercial break. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 2 of AMTV Live. It is, of course, Tuesday, June 28th. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Arizona time, 1 p.m. Pacific time, around the world. Thank you so much for your tremendous support. Those of you tuning in on YouTube, those of you tuning in on Facebook. I'm now going to be going to questions, so put your comment question in the box below. I'm going to start with Derek Smeaton. Hey Chris, do you anticipate civil unrest or mass protesting at the upcoming convention this summer? In my honest opinion, this country hasn't been this divided in my 27 years on this planet. You know, I touched on this a little bit. Excellent question, by the way. I think it was on a Facebook live broadcast a couple of days ago, how I legitimately, humbly think that this is going, and it's not something I wish. This is not something I'm like, oh, this is fantastic or anything, but I legitimately think this is probably going to be the most violent convention that we've seen, maybe arguably in American history. I have never seen so much populist anger, at least in my lifetime, my short lifetime. Now, when we covered the 2012 event, we got a lot of great interviews, and of course that was when, Mitt Romney was, running. That was actually pretty violent. There was a tremendous police state presence. In fact, we've got some pretty amazing videos that we shot if you go back into our archive. And maybe we'll even drop some of those links. Oh, Facebook is off. We just got notification as Facebook is off, so we'll try to bring that back on here, but at least we're on YouTube. But I think, and go ahead and work on that while we continue on the YouTube live cast, I thought that was violent. We had a lot of civil unrest, tremendous anger, and again, it was kind of scary. I mean, I'm just being honest. So this time around, I actually think, and I hope it's not, but we'll see even more civil unrest. I think it's being funded by these radical leftists, people like George Soros, through MoveOn.org and these other groups we talked about. In fact, I talked about this specifically on Russia Today, on RT. And I think I caught them by surprise. I just got a call like out of the blue. They're like, hello, Christopher. I can't do a Russian accent. They're like, you want to come on RT? And they gave me, 20 minutes notice. I don't think that they knew I was going to throw George Soros under the bus, which is exactly what I did. I linked him to MoveOn.org, these other NGOs, how this has been a part of his agenda, his stated agenda, his overt and covert agenda to help rile up the masses, not just at the conservative events, not just at the Republican National Convention, but also on the Democratic side. I actually personally think that the radical left is far more violent than the conservatives are. That's what's so amazing, and it's what you see at these events, especially with Donald Trump and his events he's holding around the country. Now, his event here was actually very peaceful, probably because we're a great liberty-loving state. Also, we're huge and pro-Second Amendment, kind of like Texas, which I've always said keeps order in a state and society, knowing that most people around you are armed. It's kind of a protective mechanism. So hopefully that answers your question, Derek, and thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go to Sean. I'm just going to go through some of these questions. Just started to watch from the UK, stumbled across the channel just after voting. What do you believe is the next step in the agenda of the powers that be? Well, I think we covered a lot of this earlier today. I think that the agenda is a European Union superstate. This has always been part of the agenda. It's what I've urged people to be very wary about, very cautious about. And it's one of the reasons I was going contrary to every establishment, media pundit, every quote-unquote alternative source saying, now's not the time to get complacent. Now is the time to be very aware of what these course of events will entail going forward. And as we're seeing with hardcore evidence now, this includes a European Union superstate, the eradication of sovereign armies, central banks. This is even more powerful, more grotesque, more evil than what we had before, which is one of the reasons I think they allowed this, quote unquote house of cards to fall in the first place. Rebecca says, speaking of an EU armed force, remember Loretta Lynch, Obama administration signed a deal with the UN for a global police force. Hamza Mahmoud, would we be disappointed to find out that Turkey would have the audacity to carry out these attacks as false flags on themselves with an unhappy face. E. Green Larson just tuned in. I'm from Denmark. Welcome. And I really would love to hear what you think about a poll that shows that the Danish people want to leave the EU, but our government won't make it an election. Well, I think this is a part of, again, this populist movement. It's part of the danger, but it's why the elites are using this political vacuum, because they know they can't stop it, so they're going to use it to their advantage. And this is the question that I posited several videos ago, talking about the fact that if and when the UK does leave, which happened on last Friday, was it? I think Thursday, Friday, that the next question was going to be, who's next? Is it bankrupt Italy? Is it defunct Spain? Is it crumbling Portugal? Is it your home country that you just mentioned? So this is the problem, and we're seeing a lot of mainstream media reports with this right now saying, you know, this is the problem with democracy, even though the United States of America isn't a democracy, it's a republic. But this is why they're utilizing this political vacuum, because more and more people, we're even seeing this in the States. Texans, for example, are saying, well, hey, what about a Texit? You know, I would have thought that Greece would have left the European Union, the Eurozone, far in advance than the United Kingdom. But really, I guess what we were seeing there, and we saw a lot of civil unrest, the UK was, well, it's trying to leave. We'll see if that happens. They've got to enact Article 50, which I think there's a possibility that that doesn't even go full circle. What's amazing about it, the UK left, allegedly, without firing a single shot, where there was massive unrest in Greece. So again, this is going to snowball. This is going to continue. Again, and I talked about this extensively, and I have talked about this extensively, that it's not necessarily the seminal event that occurred last week that we need to be concerned about. It's the unraveling process that will continue in the coming days, weeks, and months. You know, that's where things, I think, are going to get very dangerous. That's where I think, you know, things get really interesting. In fact, today, Larry Summers came out and said that the Brexit is the worst shock since World War II, and central banks are out of ammo. Now, of course, he's probably got a little bit of a propaganda narrative around this particular opinion, but he is right about the central banks having zero control of global economic policy right now. I mean, they've shot literally every last bullet. So once rates are at zero, once they're negative in Europe, once they're zero, potentially negative here in the United States, and again, this was a gift basket to Janet Hoare-Yellen here recently with, you know, the Brexit voting to leave, because now they never have to raise rates. What can the central bank possibly do outside of the elites that own the central bank pressing a red button that makes up the reset button that results in war, or that results in the magnification of even more jihadi terrorism, or events like what we've seen in Orlando tragically, which many believe to be a conspiratorial false flag event? And I'll let you decide that for yourself. Again, sometimes you got to kind of inch people to the truth. You can't just punch them right in the nose to start with. You've got to let people discover the truth for themselves. But global central bank policy is quite literally out of control. And it's extremely dangerous, and why there will be, in my opinion, a very significant shock, a la 2008, 2009, which, no bullshit, will make it look like a church picnic. Be very bad. And maybe it's not a stock market collapse like what we got in 08, 09 by the numbers, but maybe it's a inflationary event. And if you lose the money, it's not worth what it's printed on, and that same dollar or $100 bill can't buy the same goods and services for housing or rent or food or lifestyle expenses or anything, then that's another way to steal from the people. It's a silent tax. It's also a tactic and part of the strategy of these central banks today. I'm going to go to more and more questions here. Rob says, do you think that the Brexit result was planned from the start? Yes, I do. Terry, hi Christopher, great show. Hi Terry, great having you here. Thanks for tuning in. So if this is all part of the plan, is there anything the UK could do to further push back the agenda of the elites? Very good question. Yeah, not easy to answer that, actually. So let's repeat that. Terry says, hi, Christopher, great show. So if this is all a part of the plan, is there anything that the UK could do to further push back the agenda of the elites? Okay, well, here's my answer. They have to follow through with Article 50. We're hearing kind of all this talk right now where some members of the EU want them out, like a quick divorce, like get the hell out of here, get out of the Eurozone. And then others are saying, oh, it might take, at least 2 years, maybe 10 years. Oh, it's never going to happen. There might be some kind of event, brings it back in. We've got an EU superstate. So my number one answer to that question is don't allow these people to buy any time. If I was them, I'd want to drag this out, draw it out as long as possible, at least 2 years, hopefully 10 years, so that I can basically usher in this agenda, create the EU superstate at a time when there's some kind of event or political chaos that I can justify the need for a superstate in the first place. So I think that they're trying to buy time. So if I was to give you just my honest opinion of what I think that they should do and how the people could, what they need to do is put pressure on the politicians. So put pressure on the people that have pushed the UK moving out of the Eurozone and try to accelerate the process as much as possible. So that's actually an actionable thing people can do, not just in the UK, but around the world. Push for action. Don't let them delay. Push for an immediate breakup. Again, in my opinion, they want to buy themselves more time. That's what I would want to do if I was in their shoes or sitting in their seat. So I think that is how the people in aggregate, and remember, the masses have all the power. This is something that the New World Order elites, the establishment, the power structure doesn't want you to know. Push ahead. This is one of the reasons why I was kind of antagonistic about it over the last week or so. Don't congratulate yourself too much. Now's the time to push even harder. Push back even harder. They've given you an inch. Now we'll try to go the mile. So that I think is personally, I think that's excellent advice. And that's what I think that the people should be aware of. Because again, there is very much legitimately an organic quality to the events that have transpired. It's legitimate, it's organic, the anger is there. It's the same reason, again, people like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are so popular. It's the same reason AMTV came from nothing because you demanded it, had nothing to do with me. I don't pat myself on the back for any of this. I just, honest to God, it's a gift to put this message out to the world. But it's only because you guys have demanded it and only because you support it. But it's why the politically incorrect stance is not just so important, but it's so freaking popular. It's why people like Donald Trump are hijacking the alternative media narrative right now, which I think is a good thing. And it's one of the reasons why I said over a year ago, when people laughed at me, that he would be the Republican Party nominee, which he essentially is, unless they decide to rob him, leading up to the convention in Ohio. Lars says that's a good-looking chair. IKEA, Lars. See, we don't need fancy equipment, okay? We don't need a multi-million-dollar studio behind us. I don't need, 1,000 TVs behind me, even the quote-unquote alternative media now. I mean, how much money do these guys need to spend to get the truth out? You don't need to spend a lot of money. There is essential overhead that needs to be covered, which is tremendous, but you don't need a multi-million-dollar studio to do what we do. So thank you, but IKEA. I guess I'm just doing a pitch for IKEA. I wasn't planning on that. I'm not getting paid to say that, but I mean, $100 for the desk, for the chair. Rebecca says, this is the beginning of the global elite's big squeeze. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. It's one of the reasons why these hedge fund managers, these banksters have been buying up real estate. And actually, this has probably created an opportunity, I think, in the UK market, which has been stratospheric, much like New York, much like, places like San Francisco and the tech, Bay Area. This is actually probably an opportunity because, and I agree with this, some of the economic forecasts are predicting now that potentially the UK pound could reach parity with the US dollar, which is, again, you've heard me talk about, currency devaluation, currency wars, all of this a part of what's going on right now. And keep in mind, China and Russia are watching this very intently, these events. In fact, they're probably a part of it to some degree. But I talk about devaluation, currency war. The people of the UK are going to feel this pain. Further devaluation, reach parity. We've already seen it drop to a 31-year low. Again, the value of the pound won't be worth and isn't worth, even right now, what it was just a couple of weeks ago because of these events. And that's what people don't get. They're like, oh, it's fear-mongering, it's scare-mongering, economy's never going to crash, stock market's never going to go down. But they don't realize, they don't understand the silent tax. They don't understand that by printing all this currency and putting it into circulation, M1, M2, M3, money supply, all, the economists speak or talk, all this fancy talk just to confuse you, but they're really just printing currency out of thin air, not backed by anything. It's not, connected to a commodity, gold, wheat, soybeans. I mean, nothing. It's literally printed out of thin air. I mean, what's the difference between a dollar bill and a $100 bill over here? Nothing. It's the same thing, same piece of paper, just a couple digits removed. So that's the real problem, and that's why I think the silent tax is actually far more dangerous than, an event where the stock market crashes. Even though I think that we're in a recession now, I think we've been in a depression, but they've created an artificial reality through quantitative easing and, through Operation Twist and keeping rates, even while they've said the whole time they're going to raise rates, but they've only bumped once, 25 basis points, and now they're talking about cuts. Seriously, into negative territory. It's so dangerous, and it's why you need to prepare, and it's why you need to get the message out and share videos like these and continue to support our platform. I mean, it really is a public service. Really. You're a part of everything we do here at AMTV. We can't do any of this without you. So keep continuing to push back and share that message readily. Rebecca says, oh, you lost the live feed on Facebook. We know that. Yeah, we started again. So hopefully everything should be operable there now. Kathleen says, sounds good. Gina says, how many countries do you think will exist out of the 28? Again, it depends on how long this process actually takes. How fast of an exit, even if it even happens, the UK is able to realistically remove itself from the Euro bloc without the ushering in of a superstate, which is not a conspiracy, but is a fact. A very serious, dangerous fact. Again, let me just reiterate to you guys, because it really pisses me off that people, they won't take truth seriously. They always think it's like a conspiracy or something. There's an agenda behind it when there's not, because there's so much bullshit and there's so much propaganda out there, whether or not it's, as I mentioned, tuning into House of Cards or not, which has a tremendous propaganda embedded into it if you're not currently aware, because it desensitizes you to the criminality of these politicians and is specifically a mirror image of the Clintons. There's a reason for that. But people think this stuff is conspiracy. Again, let me repeat, because this is so important, so serious, so dangerous. Remember how I talked about consequences? Under the radical proposals, EU countries will lose the right to have their own standing army. Just that is an amazing, extremely dangerous, consequential item on the to-do list of this EU superstate. So there's going to be a United States of Europe standing army, and they're going to dissolve the armies of the countries so they can take them over. You understand that? This is centralization of power. This is technocrats ruling the world. Those that aren't elected officials. I mean, that's why there's been the organic quality of this populist movement and pushback in the first place. Not to mention that, but they will lose the right to their criminal law system, the right to tax, the taxation system, the central banks, individual central banks to manage policy. I mean, we kind of already have that now with the ECB and negative interest rates and stuff, but even more of that. And with all of these powers being stolen from the independent sovereign nations, we even see this in the United States, and transferred to a technocratic elite in Brussels. Not a conspiracy. Real. But tonight, most Americans, maybe even some of your friends, are just going to be jacking off to Kim Kardashian's ass. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. It's a nice ass. I mean, shit, I'll give her that. But people, they're just, again, they're not awake. People, I talked about this with friends and family, didn't even know what a Brexit, what it even was on Friday. It's one of the reasons why the videos and stories haven't really even started trending until now. It took a while. Even keywording these videos and the events, it took a while for that even to seed into the algorithmic system that makes up companies like Google, because people weren't searching for it. They didn't even understand it. But that's the point. Why do you think there's so much propaganda? Why do you think they want you focused on a really, and some people would totally disagree, but a very supple ass, and they don't have you focused on, oh wow, radical proposals that each country, part of the 28-member bloc, now 27, is going to lose their army, criminal law system, right to tax, central bank policy and all these powers being transferred to a technocratic elite. And it's why it's absolutely so dangerous. And it's why you won't really get this, well, you won't get this from the mainstream media. And they always have a particular slant or agenda around this. There was another article in the Washington Post, this is kind of proof of the pudding, saying the Brexit is not just Europe's problem, it highlights a crisis in democracies worldwide. That's an article, you can just see it from the propaganda perspective that they're putting out because it plays right into the hands of what this agenda is. Oh, there's a problem for democracies. It's why we need an EU superstate. It's why we need to cede all power to the New World Order agenda and this power structure that makes up not having, respective standing armies with these independent sovereign nations. And a very specific piece of propaganda. Again, this is creating tremendous financial opportunities for these people as well. Tens of millions of dollars earned by people like George Soros and others. And George Soros is only just one of them. He's kind of the public face of all this, but there's many others behind the scenes not mentioned, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Fords, et cetera, that aren't mentioned, that are also profiting tremendously. Again, this evaporation of wealth intended. That's why there was the heist in 2008, the greatest transfer of wealth financial crash in the history of the world, bending Americans over, transferring and funneling all that money so they can usher in this. Radical socialism through the Manchurian candidate that made up the 2 terms of Barack Obama, and what they're intending and hoping for, the continuation of that criminal agenda through the pawn that makes up Hillary Clinton, who's a very angry lady, according to that Secret Service gentleman who actually gave Bill Clinton a black eye as he was, philandering with a cigar and sticking it up Monica Lewinsky's hoo-ha. A lot of people and a lot of things at work, I don't think people understand. I did see an article and some commentary that I actually listened to earlier from Patrick Buchanan talking about that after a Brexit, a Trump path to victory is assured. When we first talked about Trump losing in 2016. Again, I could be wrong about that. I hope I'm wrong. That's going to be amazing if I'm wrong. I really hope to God that I am. But you hear a lot of people saying, yeah, this is a Trump, victory. Now it's assured. I don't know about that. In fact, I think that the unraveling of the UK out of the Eurozone might be kind of what they planned, because that kind of acts as a catharsis that harnesses the populist anger, where the people feel like they won, in Europe at least, and now there won't be as much pushback maybe potentially here in the United States. It's a possibility. You could argue it the other way, that, oh, this is only encouraged, and there's a strong argument to that this is only encouraged. Oh, wow, the people have power. Look at what they've done in Europe. Now Donald Trump truly can succeed. But again, it's an uphill battle, and I'm the guy, the type of intellectual person, I don't believe that your vote counts. I hate to say that, America, but and those of you tuning in around the world, I don't think your vote counts. Talk about it all the time in all of our videos, thousands of videos. 2-party system is really just one party. It's illusory, owned by the same technocrats with the same agenda. They create all this discourse, and if you don't believe me, just argue with anyone on the street that's either on the left or on the right, or on the right and on the left, on the left, on the right. And it's just the same bickering, divide and conquer strategy, something Barack Obama is tremendously good at, by the way. On guns, especially on race. Barack Obama is honestly the most racist person that I have ever come across, and I've never met him personally in my entire life. He is the biggest racist out there that America has ever seen. And I'm comfortable saying that. We've seen that with the Ferguson riots, how he endorses that kind of thing, all the riots that we've seen. Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, how he likens his own. If he had a son, it would be Trayvon Martin, how he constantly interjects his overt and intentional racism. Barack Obama, the most racist person, I don't even care, he's president of the United States, most racist person I've ever seen. But again, that's a part, and he works as a puppet, the teleprompter reader that he is. That's a part of the agenda. I don't think your vote counts, which is one of the reasons why, at least in my playbook, and I could be wrong about this, and I'll be happy to admit it if I am. Again, I get things wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a crystal ball reader at all. I'm really good at seeing instinctually the big picture of the forest through the trees, but you can't, nail short-term, specific events. Nobody can. If anybody tells you they can, I certainly can't. They're lying to you, or they shouldn't be listened to. But just like you, I'm smart enough to see the forest through the trees. It's amazing over 7 years doing this, you get better at understanding the propaganda because I study this 24/7. I can see what's developing and kind of rearing its ugly head or unearthing within the mainstream media narrative before these stories on the EU superstate even hit. It's why I was talking about it before the stories even existed. It's why I was criticizing a lot of even our peers. It's like, dude, wake up, man. Like, how do you not see this? But again, the propaganda is good. They're selling it to you very hard. Not just Kim Kardashian's ass, but all this other political, banking, and a lot of this, I mean, we see this abroad, but American propaganda. This credit-based, diffused society where we don't really have interpersonal relationships or sense of community. That's why a lot of, you see it in like the church and those kinds of things I think are excellent, which is why, there's a good places for community, but mostly Americans don't even like each other. It's my way or the highway. It's my property and not yours. People put fences around, just like Mark Zuckerberg is doing, for example, in his property out in Kauai, ruining the view for all the people that live there. What an asshole. Bitches about people like Donald Trump for wanting legal immigration here in the United States, while at the same time saying one thing, doing the exact opposite. But they've created a society that's destroyed the family structure, that's destroyed the family unit, that's forced both parties, male and female, husband, wife, or even husband, or wife, whatever you are, force is both of you to work. They want to collapse that system. They don't want that. They don't want the people to actually have a strong community. Destroying communities, destroying family values only gives the EU superstate, it only gives the United States more federal, authoritarian, technocratic power. And that is absolute reality. I'm going to go to just a few more questions, maybe one last question as we approach the top of the hour. We're going to be ending this broadcast. Again, thanks for bearing with us with all the technical difficulties today. It took us an hour or longer to get the streams up, but I just want to thank you so much for your tremendous support. If you haven't already, please support us on demand. We need your support. $4.95 a month, $49.95 a year. I'm looking at you, Facebook. I'm looking at you, YouTube. We've built, people say all the time, Christopher, why don't you build your own infrastructure? We have. So go support it. The technology is awesome. You can get our show on your handheld, be the first to get emails, get all of it ad and completely commercial free. Get it on your iPad, get it on your Amazon stick, get it on all these devices, whether or not it's Android or Apple, get it straight to your TV. We've built all this stuff for you guys. We've self-funded all of this. But now I ask for your support to continue this mission, to continue fighting this war. Let's go to at least one more question, and then we'll be re-airing this broadcast all around the world. Marcus Packer says, whoop, whoop. Says AMTV is awesome. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Danny says hello. Hey, Danny. Somebody says terror attack and Instable. I did catch that. Yeah, that's kind of ongoing and pretty live. It's actually and something we'll try to stream more and more as we're doing the live show, live events as we're broadcasting. Great audio. Thank you. So we're getting some positive comments. I'm looking at some of the Facebook questions right now, so I'm glad that that's gotten a lot better. We've had a lot of help, basically kind of working with the sound and that kind of thing. Josh says Bush knocked down the tower as well. I'm going to have to save that for another video. September 11, 2001, one of the greatest conspiracies we have ever seen, witnessed in world history, not just here in America. Neil says, what's up? Harvest says, in your face, Alex Jones. Cheers from the Netherlands, from Flip. I'm going to end it here today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, make sure you tune in live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Arizona time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for your support. Share this video everywhere. None of what we talk about is conspiracy. Share with your friends, your family, take it to the dinner tables, your church, your communities. Tell them about this European superstate. More Orwellian control. All a part of the agenda. If you're living in the UK, you voted to go. and to exit the EU. That's freaking awesome. Don't give these technocratic politicians an inch. Go a mile. Push back. Make sure they don't drag this out 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's what they want. They want to buy themselves time. How do we fight back? Don't give them time. Write your politicians, call your politicians, reach out even to the mainstream media. Put it out through social media. Fight the machine through the machine. And thank you again for supporting us. A very special message I'm humbled to deliver on your behalf that I feel a duty and absolute loyalty to you. I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Live, Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. Hard hitting it in your face. Get this video out and share it everywhere. Peace.